This is an adjacent episode to the episode we published on China, on our trip to China. So it's a continuation of this travel blog. And we want to talk about the fact that the Chinese industry, particularly the tech industry, and our trip was really focused on tech. So this whole comments, all these comments about our China trip are really focused on technology and the modern lifestyle of China. So we're not interested in the history, in the steel industry or the insurance industry or any of that stuff. Not that that's not important, but we haven't focused. This trip was, we want to understand how young, modern tech people live in China, how they work, how they make money, what the businesses are. So that was the purpose of the trip. And within that context, we want to talk about this really interesting insight, which is that the Chinese entrepreneur class is still kind of caught in this I want to make money fast paradigm. And the reason that's maybe holding the country a little bit back, particularly the tech industry, is because in order to really make a big difference, and in order to stop just copying the West, which is really what they're still doing, and that that's been an insight also. We haven't expected that. So copying the West, not in every aspect. There are some aspects where they are ahead, like for example, Alipay is I would say a technology that is probably more interesting than what we have with Apple Pay, but it's okay. I mean, Apple Pay is fine too, so it's not such a big difference. But anyway, back to the Chinese entrepreneur class. There's this concept of copying is, of course, incredibly strong, particularly in the car industry. There's two companies that are maybe seriously, competitive with Tesla. One is Xiaomi, the other is XPeng, and both of them just, really shamelessly copy Tesla on everything. Even their shareholder decks, everything is about. You can look at the earnings call of Tesla and just copy, paste, and change the names. They talk about, their own chip development. They talk about FSD. They talk about robo-taxis. They talk about, I don't know, all that stuff. Now, the designs are a little bit different, and they have more of the cluttering for Chinese customer type of stuff, which I think, again, as I said in the previous episode, I think this is an opportunity for Tesla. Slickness, reduction, minimalism, that is the way to go. Because you can't compete with the Chinese on cluttering. They're much better. If you take, there's a very, very nice vegetarian restaurant that we ate a lot on this trip. It's a chain, so you get them in all the kinds of cities. Links in the show note. So that restaurant is a neo-Chinese, very slick design type restaurant, and that's something that's lacking on the tech side. We don't see that as much. There's some aspects of it, like Xiaomi has a few of them, but there's still, that's lacking. But what's much more lacking is this ability to really innovate and do something sort of what I call the Christopher Columbus type businesses, where you go out there, you venture into the ocean without knowing where you're going to get. That is something the Chinese are not good at yet, but they're not good at right now. It's all old school type business. I want to see my returns. I want to know what I'm doing. I want to understand what I'm doing. And there is a bit of a lack of this desire to really go venture out into the tech space and try new things and take some risk and potentially, maybe fail. Failing is difficult here. So that's, I think, that's something that the U.S. should put itself, that's something that U.S. entrepreneurs and sort of the whole American culture should be aware of. And I think we should foster that as Americans, that we have this ability to venture into new disruptive territory. We have the venture capital industry, I think primarily nurtured by the PayPal mafia, not only, but primarily. And people like Thiel and Musk and others have created a culture of, hey, I want to try this. I want to do this against the grain. I want to do this my way. 0 to 1, Peter Thiel's book, very instrumental, I think, for a whole generation of startups in the United States. The funds that give money to people like that, all of that is not present in China. And that's an interesting observation. I want to leave it at that. I can draw my own conclusions, but you don't have this desire to reinvent something from scratch, to go first principles and really think about how can I do this fundamentally different. That's not the case here. And that's, on the one hand, also an incredible strength that we have in the US. Every time I come to China, the one thing that China does to me, it teaches me about myself. It teaches me about who I am. And in this context, it teaches me about what culture I live in and what my culture is and how I can succeed with my strengths. And that is the strength that we have in the United States. Now, we as investors, we channel capital into businesses like that. The Chinese, they are certainly, they're not lazy, don't get me wrong. It's just not in their culture. They don't have that ability to jump out of their own skin, to, outrun their own shadows and try something new. They don't have that yet. It might come, and there's Chinese entrepreneurs in the US who can do it. But you see, it's not enough just to be good and have good grades and get good, college degrees and all that, and work at good companies. You need more than that. That's maybe what Peter Thiel with his Founders Fund is trying to do. He's looking for this talent, this very unique talent that is able to really build these large businesses. And I want to finish this episode with a comment that I recently came across listening to Naval. Shout out to Naval and his podcast, very useful, always very useful. And he said something very interesting. He said that VC is in the business of sourcing talent and distilling that talent into products and services. And the talent, that is the biggest value out of a VC. And he said something else. He said that nobody's gonna ever be able to hire somebody who's better than themselves. Now, in certain cases that might be possible, but typically that's not possible. And I want to ask something more fundamentally within that context. If you're a CTO of a company, if you work for, you're running something at Tesla, at SpaceX, at Anduril, at NVIDIA, or whatever, are you going to hire somebody who's going to do something that you absolutely don't believe in? For example, if you're the CTO of Pony AI, are you going to hire a person that tells you get rid of all your sensor suite? If you're the chief technology officer of NVIDIA and you hire somebody who tells you, forget about the GPU, let's do something new. That's the kind of thing that defines a company. Doesn't mean you always have to say yes, but do you have the ability to even contemplate the idea to throw out the baby with the bathwater in order to pursue a new avenue of a potential new technology and business that could change the world? Thank you.